Hello, I'm your host, Reshon Ellis, along with Mr. Anthony Wright, aka the Chef. Tonight, we're going to do things a little bit different on Urban Beats Radio too. We want to discuss a lot of the different things that are taking place within our nation at this time: the COVID-19 pandemic, coronavirus, systematic racism, police brutality, and how it's affecting our nation and our world. Please stick around. We will be right back. Okay, we're back from taking a quick break. We want to go ahead and get into the first topic of discussion, which is COVID 19. I guess, Anthony, what we can first start talking about is like, how did we get here? Where did COVID 19 come from? How did we get to this situation? I've heard a lot on the news as far as them saying it started in a wet market over in China. And a lot of people are starting to say now that they don't believe that's the case. They believe that it was something man made, something extra was added to it to make it be this potent to where it has spread all over the world and the United States.
Yeah, I've heard some of the same things from previous information. Um, let's say this: there are laboratories all over the world that carry different diseases. CDC,
Right,
China, the Asian government has a lab also. COVID-19 or the coronavirus isn't a new disease or pandemic.
right.
They've had cases of it. Now, I shouldn't say cases. Um, it's in the lab. There are samples of it in the lab, in most labs all over the world, because they use these these diseases to try and find different type of cures for existing diseases that we have out there.
Right.
They mix and blend just like a smoothie to see what comes out of it and to see
Mm-hmm.
how they can use it in order to make new antiviral or anti pandemic drugs from these type of things.
Yeah,
Um, so COVID-19 coronavirus isn't a new thing. It's been around for a while. Um, but how did it get out?
right.
Couldn't tell you. I mean, everybody has a not everyone, but many would like to say, and especially our government would like to say, it came from China. Now, that's possible,
Yeah,
but why would the Chinese government unleash something like that on their own people?
exactly.
I mean, because for me personally, um, I really do believe that the pandemic itself is a planned thing,
A pandemic.
a planned thing.
A
Exactly.
pandemic. That's exactly what it feels
Uh,
like. Exactly.
and mostly, it's being used to get our mindsets changed into being scared and needing to get direction more from our government.
Yeah,
And our government saw that China had this pandemic over there. And let me just say this: if a country like China has a pandemic that's getting out of control and they still have international flights all over the world going on while this is happening, the pandemic was already here in the United States when it was at its height in China. There's no
around October or November of last year.
right, right. It was
Yeah,
already here, just really, really small cases of it.
yeah.
Nobody knew what it was or what the symptoms were concerning it.
Hmm.
There's no way for you to keep a disease like that from spreading during the height of it, and there's still a whole lot of flight going out to different parts of the world.
It just seems so planned. It seems like it was pretty much planned. And what I find so funny about it is why something like this right now, right as we're getting ready to choose another president?
Exactly.
Like all these different events, it's like every time you turn around, there's a
It
different
seems to be
situation taking place.
every few months there's something new that comes out,
Right.
distracts us from what's going on in our,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
now. Me personally has nothing to do with um, Urban Beach Radio or any other affiliates out there. My personal opinion is
Mm-hmm.
that this has been all planned out. This is a planned orchestration by the top 1% in the world to move our economies onto digital digital money.
Exactly.
That's my personal opinion of it.
I want to say I feel that way too. And this is my opinion. Nobody has to agree. But I know a lot of people have said, where does Bill Gates come in on this thing? Well,
Exactly.
he's a technology guru. So he has everything to do with it. He has everything to do with it as far as everybody's starting to fear being chipped. I hate to say it, but that's where he comes into play.
So
So
what
even though he doesn't know anything about the coronavirus, he's not a medical student or nothing like that. He doesn't have to. He has the other piece of the puzzle.
exactly? And what's funny is Harvard, I want to say in 2018, did a documentary on what would happen to the financial institutions of the world if a pandemic
Yeah.
got out of control, and how would the government respond to it. They actually did something like that in 2018. So what does
Mm-hmm.
that tell you? That seems like somebody way back then and even before that had been putting the plan together and stitching all the things together to see exactly how people will react to it.
Right.
Before it
Like
actually
this is the first phase.
first
See what
phase,
happens. Yeah, we're in the first phase of it.
think about it and how they will respond to it in a setting where it's controlled. And then
Exactly.
when it happens later on, we should know, give or take, um, the bell curve here or there, how people will adjust and will move towards these type of responses that we want them to have.
Exactly. It's pretty much like getting us conditioned for what the
Getting us
second
conditioned,
phase of what's next, or what they're going to do next.
getting us
Because
conditioned.
I just don't see how at this point we could possibly go back to being normal. I mean, I've already told myself, like, okay, even once they say that everything is cool, in my mind, I'm not going to sit here and live my life like it's cool. I'm paying attention to see what could possibly pop off next.
You have to, you have
It
to.
puts us in a place to where you can't trust our government. Like, how did we get here?
And so as we've been hearing on the news and radio, talk show hosts, COVID-19 originally, not originally, but it affects those with secondary condition, those
Blacks.
blacks and the elderly, high blood pressure,
Yeah.
heart,
Yep.
those type of things.
Yep.
That's a very specific group to
A
be.
very specific group, which leads me to my next question. Who is it affecting most? Okay, they're basically saying it's affecting our people,
Yeah,
the elderly people.
yes,
It's almost as if, and done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of researching, and I've watched a lot of videos. It's almost like saying, well, one, the old people, they've lived their life. We don't need them anymore. We don't want to pay
they're
them
a
Social
drag on.
Security, no benefits, no pension, whatever. Let's get them on out the way. Blacks, what do they have to offer? They don't own anything.
Right.
How do we benefit from them? So it kind of puts us in a place like, for those that are not, I guess, if they don't feel that, have that much worth, we don't need them.
They're
It
trying to
looks
force
like
you.
that.
I'm, it amazes me, um, the thought process behind a group of
Right.
people who plan these type of things out. Now, with that being said, we know that mostly people with secondary conditions are getting affected, and that's a large number of African Americans that have these type of conditions. How do we move
Mm-hmm.
forward? Because they're opening up things now. They're making it so that businesses are opening up, restaurants, shopping, hotels, places where people congregate. And also,
Yeah.
okay, so let me just say this, and it hurts me to say it though, but
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of jobs that I work at, right? One in
Mm-hmm.
particular is I do security at night at a major hotel here in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who's at the hotel every night of the week, checking in, staying for 4 or 5 days, and then checking out after the weekend? Take a guess.
Hmm. I don't know.
It's all us. It's all
Okay. The
us.
cousins.
I mean, 98% of the people that come into that hotel,
Yeah.
it's us, African
Yeah.
American, young, early 20s to middle 20s, and even some in their 30s,
Yeah.
out in the hotel trying to go out at night here in Atlanta. Mainly because Atlanta is one of the few states that opened up kind of early. And
Yeah.
there were people actually from Michigan, Houston, Texas, and a couple of other cities who drove here in order to be able to get out during this time in COVID 19. I was completely blown away.
But you know what that says, and I hate to say it, that means our people, you got to listen. You
Can't
got to pay attention
possibly
and see what's going on. Everything is not,
out of
oh, whoop de whoop, have a good time. Pay attention to what's going on in your world. Pay attention to what's going on around. Period. Just pay attention. Don't be a fool. Don't be crazy. Don't be
don't
stupid.
allow yourself to be used
Yeah. Don't be used.
to tear down
Yeah.
our community.
Yeah.
Now, I understand. I was, of course, we both were young at one time. We we're trying to experience life. When you're in your early 20s, there's a lot out there for you to experience. But there's also a time when you should be smart about how you make moves. It
But you
really,
know what I think? I hate to cut you off. What I believe is, as far as our young people, I believe they've gotten so accustomed and so used to being able to just move about freely.
yeah,
They probably can't even believe that something like this is actually taking place in their lifetime. Now, from what they said, there was a Spanish flu, was it 1918, I believe?
hmm,
It took place hundreds of years ago, whatever. Well, here we are again today with the same thing. They're probably dealing with the fact that this isn't real. This is
yeah.
fake. This
It
isn't
doesn't
true.
directly affect me. I don't see these things happening.
And they're taking it for granted, not taking it to be serious.
And although they might not feel any of the symptoms, they could be
Asymptomatic. They could be
going to
asymptomatic
their
carriers.
relatives,
Exactly.
passing it to elderly relatives that have these secondary conditions. I just, it's a difficult thing to swallow. It's a difficult thing to look at clearly because it just feels like no matter where we go from here, things are going to change. How we interact with each other, how we interact in public spaces, and things like that. It's just going to change. How do we see these things moving forward? How do we do?
Hmm.
That's a tough thing to have to look at, but something has to be done. We have to
Right.
take a step back as a group and say we're affected the most by this. We
Yeah.
have to take care of each other. We have to be smart. We have to play the game better. And in order for us to survive this, and in order for us to move forward in a positive way, I just
Hmm.
think we really need to take the time out to get to know
I can't hear you.
get to know our community better and how we
Right. Do you think that it could have been prevented? I mean, we've heard a lot of talk about, in the White House, they had warned President Trump, telling him, what was about to take place, what could
um
happen, what could go down. He says he wasn't really focused on it at the time because he was more focused on not getting impeached. So that wasn't his focus. And so, of course, a lot of us feel like, yeah, it could have been prevented if he had acted in time. But it's almost like he didn't act in time, which, of course, is almost like using it to prevent us from voting in November.
I can't say that it could have been prevented, mainly because this is the reason. Now, what could have happened was we could have been better prepared to address the issue. But as far as preventing it, America is so used to, Americans in America are so accustomed to being able to have the freedom to go in and out and go places they want to,
Do what they want.
second guessing it. It's
Yep.
not Russia or China where the government controls a lot of everything. You know,
Yep.
government runs state. So when they say this is what you do, the people there are already conditioned to listen to the government and to pay heed to what they're saying. Here in
Right.
America, hey, we
Yeah.
talk about tell us we can't go outside.
Exactly.
We can't go to the club.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, really and truly. We don't understand that concept. We
Right.
come from the land of the free and
Hmm.
brave.
Yeah.
We
We're
want
not used to being, on lockdown. I mean,
to talk
being in the
down.
house, can't do
Oh,
anything, can't go anywhere.
we can't do this. It's
Having to cover our face, wear a mask. It's
it's a
just this is a
foreign
whole nother world for us.
it's a foreign concept to us. So
So I guess, like, what do you think we go from here with everything opening back up? I mean, From what I've seen, they're saying now the cases have risen to 115,000 within the United States, 400 and something, 450,000 globally
Hmm.
around the world. So they're opening things up to keep the economy pushing, dragging along, which is what's happening. But people are steady dying.
We have to be we have to take care of ourselves. And that's all it really boils down to, because it's been stated by, Mr. Trump, that even if there's a spike in the cases, he's not shutting it back down.
Right.
So, okay, so we're just out there now.
Yeah, that's what he said. It's pretty much like leaving it up to us to make our own decision.
We don't have a parachute. He's not going to give us a parachute. It,
Right.
you either take care of it or you fall off. And so we have to take care of ourselves. That's what happens.
Exactly.
We have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
Vigilant.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, we're going to take another quick break, right quick, and we're going to come back and discuss police brutality, how it's affecting the Black community. We'll be right back. On Urban Beats Radio 2, each week we have a brand new set of shows. Starting on Tuesdays at 6 p.m., we have Two Kings in a Pod with C. Will Holla and Blanchard. We also have Just Call Me J. Nicole. She comes on at 3 p.m. On Wednesdays, we also have Old School Wednesdays where we mix it up with DJ Chaos. On Thursdays, we have I Could Be Wrong, But I Doubt It. And on that show, we have Old Man Fresh and Reggie the Underdog. And on Friday, we have C. Will Holla again with In My Mind, Everybody Knows Chris. And you also want to tune in for the men's show, which is also C. Will Holla and Jason Tyler the Person. And on Saturdays, we have J. Nicole, Just Call Me J. Nicole, at 3 p.m. again.
Urban Beats Radio 2. This is the chef, Anthony Wright, and Miss Rochelle here today talking to you concerning some very, very deep conversations concerning police brutality, protesters all over the United States, and the death of Mr. George Floyd, and also the death just recently of a Mr. Reshon Brooks at a Wendy's here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Um, these topics are very, very heavy, and
Yep.
it's weighing on my heart all the things that's going on in our country today concerning African Americans and trying to clean up so much of what has been going on with us and the police and institutional systemic racial um, issues.
Right.
Um, I remember my great grandfather, and his name was Mr. Robert Wright. And he used to tell me stories of when he would go to work, um, working for a white gentleman in Macon, Georgia. And then when he would come home, it would be late at night. And he was scared every time he had to come home because driving on those Macon roads, he wasn't sure if he was going to get pulled over
Mm-hmm.
by a Georgia police officer or state trooper
Yeah.
and he go missing,
Yeah.
going home to see his family. And I'm a single father, and with all that's going on, every time my son leaves the house to go to work, I start sweating.
Right. You're concerned immediately.
I'm concerned because this isn't something the police brutality, the systemic racism isn't something that's just happened. It's something that's been going on in America since slavery has been brought to this country.
Exactly.
What we have now is because of social media and the availability of cell phones, these things are more readily viewed by the public. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that you can see
Yep.
on the spot and why it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let me state this: Mr. George Floyd um, had his life taken from him by a police officer by the name of Derek Chauvin.
Chauvin. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And a little background on the story is uh, Mr. Floyd was a security guard or a bouncer in a club in
Yep.
Minneapolis. Now, and of course, Mr. Derek Chauvin was a police officer. And a police officer that on multiple occasions was reported to having had run ins and difficulties with the patrons that were African American
Right.
at the club that Mr. Floyd worked at. And Mr. Floyd used to address him concerning those issues.
Mm-hmm.
You are too aggressive with the patrons that come to this club to enjoy themselves.
Right.
That's been a stated fact.
Yep.
They bumped heads. And I think that when an officer had an opportunity
He used it. It was personal.
to get some payback,
Yep.
it was an opportunity he couldn't pass up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that he wanted to kill Mr. Floyd because I don't know for sure. But I think his biggest focus was to punish him for every time that he was addressed by Floyd on his actions in the club and outside the club. Because
Right.
the police officer, if the club is already paying for security inside, you don't need to come in unless they require you to come in for something that's above their heads
Right.
and ability to take care of. All right.
Yeah.
And he would, on Mr. Chauvin, on multiple occasions, come in the club, and his aggressive nature concerning African Americans was an issue and
Yeah.
had to be addressed by the other security officers in there in the club.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity for him to get back at Floyd. Again, I don't know if he was trying to kill him, but as a 230-pound man, and I'm not 100, 230 pounds, what I'm saying, I was in the military for 9 years. I've also done martial arts
Yeah.
for multiple years. Anytime someone of that weight, 200 plus pounds, has all of his weight pressed down on the cervical area of the neck, it's it's lights out.
You're gonna kill him.
You're going
That's
to you are going to cut off not only air circulation but blood to the brain.
pretty much.
And watching that video, that officer was on that gentleman's neck
Right.
for approximately 10 minutes. Now, I don't know the exact time, but 10 minutes definitely. And the man was calling out and saying, please, can you get off of my neck?
Right.
Now, they already had him handcuffed behind his back. Why was he still on
Mm-hmm.
the ground with your knee on his neck? He was already incapacitated. Why was he still on the ground? Why was he not placed in the back of the car? Because you guys had a car there.
Now, I remember seeing, I did watch a little bit of CNN. They were saying something to the fact that Mr. George Floyd said that he was claustrophobic. So when they showed videos of them trying to like put him into the police car, I guess a little struggle, was going on there.
Okay.
But once they got him out of that situation and, he walked over alongside the police car and to go around the police car, that's when he stumbled. And next thing you know, he's on the ground. And from
And
there, we all saw what happened. He literally had his knee on the man's neck. And from that, like we said, you're a 200 and something pound man. All of your weight, everything that you got is on his neck. You're supposed to position that person in a position to where they can still breathe freely, still be able to communicate with you, not in a position that they can't move, they can't breathe. I mean, what are you trying to do? And he had to me, from what I could see, he had every opportunity to reposition himself to where he wasn't hurting him.
exactly,
He even
exactly,
had time to take his knee off and reposition his knee.
exactly,
So, like, okay, so they at first they said third degree, now it's second degree. It's second degree because he shifted his knee. He
exactly.
had time to take his knee off, and so now we get to the point where we believe it's personal. They used to work at a club together.
Yes,
Oh, okay, you know him. Oh,
yes,
you've actually had words before about being too aggressive with the patrons, and look at how you handled Mr. George Floyd.
exactly, exactly. And it's tragic. And this
Very
is
tragic.
the time, of course, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We have
Right, exactly.
Americans throughout our history that have
Mm-hmm.
disappeared, beaten, brutalized,
Mm-hmm.
shot dead by police officers and
Yeah.
justifying it by saying they were aggressive. They were aggressive.
But
You
you know what? Just like you just said, like they're always justifying it by saying they were aggressive. Let me just say this: what took place Friday night? That's a perfect example of what I'm starting to see and feel as though there's not common sense being used in policing. A lot of situations, I feel like they're taking it out of proportion, blowing it out of proportion, like with the George Floyd situation. Okay, that situation they say came up because the owners of the convenience store, they called the police because he had a counterfeit $20 bill.
Mhm.
Again, it could have been discussed, figured out what happened, da 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 da, worked out, whatever.
All you had to do was have a conversation. Where'd you get it?
Exactly, exactly. So same thing for what happened on Friday night with Mr. Rayshard Brooks. If you watch the video, he was in his most humblest form. He talked to the police officers, whatever, let them know where he had been, had a few drinks, da 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 da.
Mhm.
Sir, I'll walk home. If you don't want me to drive my car, I'll walk home. At that moment, if he was able to even sit there and talk to you and have a conversation and tell you what's going on with him, at what point don't you think to yourself and say, okay, well, maybe he just need a ride home. He doesn't need to drive his car, but won't we call an Uber? Or
Why
let
can't
him call
you
his
call it
family member.
exactly?
Exactly. Let him call his family member to see, if they can come and get him. Can they verify what he's saying? Oh, hell, we can take him home. There was no reason for them to try to arrest him for DUI. It wasn't like he was on the interstate, had an accident, jumped over the interstate thing or whatever, and landed over there by Wendy's. Was like, oh, he done killed about 10 people. We got to lock him up for DUI. He
Let me,
was right there in that spot, and therefore, I don't even like I said before. I don't think every situation warrants an arrest. But also, you got to keep in mind as well. They have certain quotas that they have to meet.
definitely.
So to me, it's almost like every opportunity, no matter how bogus it may be. I've seen situations where they were trying to arrest a gentleman for not having a bike bell on his bike.
Really.
Silly stuff. A lot of situations that they actually stop and pull people over for, or whatever it may be, it can be something that can be they can de-escalate the situation. It doesn't have to be blown out of proportion. It can be fixed.
So let me say this: three instances that I remember. Three Caucasian males. One shot up that school.
Mm-hmm.
One shot the church up.
Yep.
Right. And then there was another one. Um, I can't remember specifically. So those two examples are definitely in my mind. These two people killed, on average, 15 people.
Right.
15 people. And
Mm-hmm.
yet they can be walked right into the police station,
With no problem.
not be dead.
Exactly. Exactly.
It it completely blows my mind.
It's very mind blowing. Because
And
what I don't understand is you can definitely see this is where the systematic racism part comes in at. They handle blacks way differently than they handle
they
whites.
handle whites.
They give them a chance to explain.
Yeah,
They're diligent with them. They take their time with them.
definitely, definitely. It's a buddy system. It's a
Thank
buddy
you.
system
Thank
almost.
you. Thank you.
And
They don't give us a chance to say anything. In his case, he sat there and explained
we
himself with
are
them. He was very
automatically
cordial with them.
we
Mr.
are
Rayshard
automatically
Brooks.
being aggressive. We are automatically
Yeah,
taking arrest.
automatically.
And let me say this now. Mr. Brooks did fight back. He
Right.
grabbed the
I saw
tape
that.
from the officer.
Right.
It was difficult for both of them to take him down. Now,
Right.
that being said, Mr. Brooks had the taser and was running.
Yes.
He pointed the taser at the officer. The officer pulled a gun out. He
Yeah.
should know better than anyone that gun was not necessary. It was
Right.
not the situation to pull the gun out. He had a taser, and Mr. Brooks wasn't even paying attention to where he was aiming it. He just put his arm back like
Yeah.
so and was running forward. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
specifically looking at where he was aiming the gun.
Yeah.
The officer pulled the gun out and shot. It did
Yeah.
not warrant him to pull his gun out. It just
It's
didn't.
just
It just
it's
didn't.
just so sad because I mean I can appreciate that Mr. Brooks was cordial, conversated with him in the beginning. I will say I just hate the fact that he when he did resist because we already know what's going to happen if you do
He did
resist.
resist. He didn't feel like it was warranted for him to get arrested. You know.
Right, but
I
he did. I guess his way of showing that it wasn't he shouldn't have been arrested was he resisted.
right, right. I
Same
get
thing that we're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
now that does put us. in a situation. It does.
Right.
You resist arrest, that opens the door for them to escalate it to another level. But
Pretty much.
in
Yeah.
that brother's life was not something that should have happened. And
Right.
because of that, there were major protesters on I 75, north and west, in downtown
Mm-hmm.
last night. They shut down the highway on both sides for approximately, I want to say, a good hour,
Yeah.
and no traffic was going through.
Yeah.
I commend the protesters that understand the importance of raising the awareness of these injustices to our community. It is
Yeah.
important that we raise the awareness of these things going on. We
Yeah.
need to support each other. We need to
Yeah.
be solidified in our action. The
Yeah.
robbing, the stealing, those are opportunists. We don't need that kind.
Right.
We need to
Exactly.
stay
That
together.
defeats the purpose of being out
It
there
defeats the
protesting.
purpose.
Right.
It just says, there they go again, acting like animals. Now we understand we're upset. We're upset. Our brothers and sisters are beat up, shot, killed by the people who say that they're here to protect us.
Right.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
It is. I pay your salary by paying my taxes so that I can feel safe, but I can't even be safe in my own house or on the streets from the police officers either.
Right. That brings us to Breonna Taylor, the no knock situation. Of course, now
Exactly.
they've passed a law in her name, for having a no knock warrant. They can't do that anymore. But what's so hard to understand that is, okay, you've made a law, but you still haven't arrested the police officer that busted into her house at a certain time in the morning and took her life, shot her 8 times.
They need to go to jail.
Yeah,
They need to go to jail.
yeah,
Um, Sisters and brothers, we have to work together. We have to solidify. We have to be aware of our surroundings and how we move in them. Um, the protesting again is great, but we have to also be aware that there are other groups that will use these protests to get their own agenda out there. One group
right.
is the Antifa group,
Yep,
and they're the ones, not always, but most of the time, burning and setting things afire because they're
yep,
anti-fascist government type thing, using
exactly.
our our issues to put their agenda ahead. And
Yep,
that's not something we should do. We
exactly.
need to move them out of our demonstrations, our protests. If you want to protest, go do it somewhere else. Do it on your own terms. We
Hmm.
don't need your help. We can do this on our own. We have to learn as African Americans to stand on our own 2 feet and present issues in an intelligent and progressive way that demands that everyone pays attention to us. And I'm not saying that having whites, Asians, and Hispanics and people of all colors come and support us in these issues because they believe it's wrong also. That's not
Right.
what I'm saying is we as black people need to do a better job of presenting information, getting the information out, stating why are we protesting, and then using that information and our solidarity in order to get the information out. That's all I'm saying. We have to
Yeah,
be. We
that
can't
makes
let
sense.
ourselves be used and our agenda to be put to the side because there are so many negative things going on in association with our protesting. Be
Exactly.
strong, be smart, be brave, be brilliant. All things that we are as Black people.
Yeah,
And with
yeah.
that being said, I want to thank you guys for spending a little time with us today. We love you. We
Yes.
support you, and we want you to know that if you ask, we'll be there. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
2 was brought to you by Whipple Tompkins Mobile Notary Service, where notary service is fast and reliable, available 24/7. You better get it.
Okay, we are back. We just took a quick break. We're going to go ahead and start discussing this election that is upon us, a few months away. Like, how are things going to be different, within the next few months? Hopefully, we can get a new president elected. What do you think about that, Anthony?
I would love to say that this is something that we can accomplish, but there's a whole lot of smoke and mirrors that's going on behind the scenes.
Too many.
Even the first time that Trump was elected into office, he lost the popular vote by a staggering number
Yeah,
because he won certain states and received those electoral college votes. He retained the presidency. He earned the presidency.
right.
I don't I can't I can't fathom why our forefathers, well, not my forefathers, but why the men who designed our country put something like that into action. And when I take a step back and look at it, I see that it was designed that way so that they could prevent someone that they felt wasn't someone they needed in the White House from getting the position.
Right.
It was a
Right.
back door that they could use in order to prevent someone from getting the presidency that they didn't seem or deem worthy. Now, um, I am not a fan of President Trump. I am not a fan of him. Um, and we have the alternative, which is Mr. Joe Biden.
Yeah.
What can I say about Mr. Biden? He's honest about a lot of things. And like anyone who's a politician, there are a lot of things in his past that I do not agree with. Um, but unfortunately, he's the lesser of the evils. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Either way.
It's a terrible situation to be in. How
Yeah.
do you feel about that, America? Black America, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Both choices aren't the best as far as I'm concerned. Either one of them, they're not the best.
Yeah.
But I know that Biden is a better choice than Trump.
He's definitely a better choice than Trump.
It's hard to say that with a
Yeah.
clear face.
But this is how I look at things. I mean, everybody has a past. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's
I
perfect.
would hopefully like to think that hopefully things will be better some kind of way with Biden. That's all I can say.
He has our best interest in mind. I would like
Right.
to think that. I
Right.
would like to think that.
Yeah.
I can see him working on improving certain things like our medical insurance, improving
Yeah.
Obamacare, making sure that healthcare is done properly, making sure that our cities and our people receive the kind of funding we need in order to assist ourselves, but not keep us on public assistance. Staying on public assistance
Right.
is not something that we should be promoting. We
Yeah.
promote getting you on your feet and then you being able to walk on your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generational public assistance. It's something that I see way too often. Um, I drive 5 or 6 minutes away from my home, and you see a whole group of them hanging out at the little liquor stores and stuff like that. It's a
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah.
Um, I would like America to open its eyes on many different subjects. Um, it's something that we as African Americans and many people in the United States are going to have to take a hard look at. We
Yeah.
need to reform our government. We need to reform the rules and how things are addressed and handled within our government, um, federal wise and state wise. We have to vote.
Also, definitely we have to vote, but I also feel like, I don't know if you can feel it, but I can feel it. It kind of feels like maybe possibly this time people are becoming
The static
awake.
is really, really high.
Right. Right.
Something is going to happen.
Something's going to happen. It has to happen, because what's going to happen is if something doesn't happen, I hate to say this, It's going to be a bloodbath.
I think that we are
And I
definitely
will also say, even for the whites who don't stand up, they have to stand up. I know we mentioned the other day before we set up everything for our show today that, why is it when the whites finally say something, then everybody, follows along? Why can't blacks just stand up for themselves and people follow along?
right.
Like we don't have any backing if it's black people saying something, but if someone white stands up, then
Not,
there's backing for that.
not legitimate unless we have some whites come into it and say, "Hey, yeah, this is wrong," and
Yeah.
and that's why I say we have to learn how to stand on our own 2 feet when it comes to taking care of things. We have to be smarter. We have to learn the game. We have to play it correctly.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not appreciative of the um,
Support.
Caucasian community that comes to support us because they have good hearts.
Yes.
It's not that
Absolutely.
what's difficult is that far too often we are always having to have their assistance to get anything done. We had this conversation before.
Right.
We didn't earn our freedom. A white man gave us our freedom. We didn't uh, earn our place in America with integration. It was something that was given to us again by a white man, right? We didn't get affirmative action. It was something that, again, a white man gave to us because we protested to get it. Everything that we've received in order to move a few steps here and there has been something that a white man has given us.
They had to sign off on it in order for us to get it.
Had to sign off on
The only way.
it. Um, and I understand we're 13% of the American population. So that is something we are going to definitely always run into. But as a group, when you look at the Hispanics, the Asian, the Indian, they know how to support themselves, their own banks, their own doctors, their own grocery stores. They know how to support each other in the streets. Their communities are strong, and
Yeah.
that's we lack so much of.
Yeah.
It's very important that we start gaining that knowledge and that momentum in that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
also voting, getting together, making sure that the people who we put into office represent our needs, bottom line. And if they don't, then we get them out of office the next time we have to vote. It's just
exactly. That's the one thing I want to add as well. We definitely need to make sure that we stay on top of voting as a black community. Even if you're not black, whatever your nationality is, whatever you may be, we need to stay on top of voting because if we sit there and like not go back after we vote for president, that leaves those other ones in the cracks to continue to make the decisions
and
that they make. And they're banking on us not coming back to vote. That's why they get to sit there for a long period of time. Look at Mitch McConnell. He's been there
they,
too long. He
they
should have been
are
gone.
accountable to
Should
us.
have been gone.
We
Exactly.
to be on top of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not voting for anybody that's not consistently coming to our neighborhoods and our meetings and sitting down and having a conversation with us.
Yeah.
I don't want you to come and once right before you get ready to go in for voting. You haven't been here the whole other time. So
Yep.
when it's time to get voted on, you want to show up. No, I'm not hearing any of that.
Right.
Be a part of the community. Listen to your constituents.
Just so happened this time they can't come to church this time to try to get votes because the church is closed.
Yeah, that's it.
So you can't come in there, for like a little scapegoat to try to show up at church and try to get votes and people see who you are then. Because do you come to church any other time other than just to get votes?
Exactly. When was the last time you came to church and to sit down
Absolutely.
the people inside the audience and to listen to their concerns and to be a part of the community? I mean, I mean, again, they have to spend their time in Washington. I get that, but
Right.
you need to always keep your ear to the ground of the people who
Keep
put
your ear to the street so you know what's going on in the communities,
people
in
put you.
everybody's community.
You need to be aware of what's going on. And I
That's right.
understand you can't just take care of one group. That's
That's
not
right.
designed. It's designed for you to take care of the people who voted you in. And that could be a wide range of people. Listen,
Especially now.
yeah, yeah.
And you know what? And this is
Right.
my thing too. I would like to say I know we have like a lot of older politicians in Washington. It's time for us to get some new,
But
young politicians in office.
people,
Because yeah,
the any political office that allows you to stay in longer than 8 years needs to be limited to 8 years, no
right.
more than that.
No more than that.
You said it, Mitch McConnell, he's been in there forever,
Too long.
ever.
Should have been gone. Should have been gone. Long
30
time
plus
ago.
years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That is moronic in my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
He is a dinosaur when it comes to what's going on in America.
Because you know what I'm paying attention to is the ideals that are in Washington, it doesn't reflect in the protesters.
It doesn't.
Did you see the protesters out there? It was more
Yeah.
whites out there protesting, more Hispanics out there protesting, Puerto Ricans, Asians, Indians, you name it. We had our black people out there too. But what we see in Washington, as far as who's running the government, they're not a reflection of who's out there protesting, which tells us we need to do a clean sweep in Washington as well. Police reform, Washington reform.
Caucasian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the Senate. It is bathed in Caucasian all over the place, good and bad. But there needs to be a limit on the terms that these senators, Congress, they are in office. 8 years max. Get some blood in there that's going to vitalize and refresh our government, keep it moving in a positive direction.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I definitely agree. Because I feel like a lot of the older politicians that have been in there a very, very long time, their ideals are not the same as this generation ideals are. And that should tell us a lot. I mean, like I said, if you pay attention to the protesters that showed up in numbers, then this new generation of white Americans, they don't think the way that they think.
Yeah. They're a lot more, what's the word for it?
They're awake. They're in tune. They're not racist.
About what's going on. Not a lot of, but there is a good number who completely understand that the system is broken.
Absolutely.
The system is broken.
Absolutely.
It's been broken for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. I want to also thank anybody that's come out to protest, no matter what your race is, white, Black, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, whatever. We love everybody. And I definitely do believe, and I will say this to everyone, we are much stronger in numbers. We shouldn't let them divide us by whether we're Democrat or Republican. We shouldn't let them divide us by our race. This is the time right now for every American, every citizen to stand up for what's right. Forget about your race and your color. Stand up for what's right. You know in your heart, in your mind, in your soul what's right. Stand up for what's right.
No matter what.
No matter what. Absolutely.
No matter what. Absolutely. So thank you again for spending a little time with us at Urban Beats Radio 2. Miss Reshon Ellis and myself, the chef. Again, we want to thank you for viewing us, spending time with us, and please vote, be safe, and see us again, all right?
Absolutely. Be safe.
Be safe.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Urban Beats Radio 2. Don't forget to visit our new YouTube channel, like us and subscribe to us, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.